What's up? It's the Deck Talking Devil back with you again for another episode. Wanted to show you guys this book because I mentioned it in one of the previous episodes. I recommended it. I think it was the episode where I talked about Paul and Constantine. Uh, so that's a book by Bart D. Ehrman that I highly recommend you read. It's called The Triumph of Christianity. Uh, Pick that book up again. Pick it up. Real good book. So today I wanted to talk about something that's near and dear to some of you guys' hearts, not so much to mine. It's the subject of flat Earth. Yeah, are you a flat earther? Uh, Before we get into it, I want you guys to go ahead, hit that like button, smash it, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. So, I think uh, if you're on the journey to truth uh, and you're going through, the process, the whole process of freedom from religion, uh, reteaching yourself, kind of emptying your head of everything that you learned, seeing through the filters, reading between the lines, uncovering hidden truth and hidden history and things of that nature. It's almost inevitable that you come across the flat earth concept, and some people would say the flat earth conspiracy. Uh, and if you don't know about flat earth, I'll just tell you some stuff, very general. Again, this isn't a video where I'm teaching flat earth concept. So I'm not going into all the details about, well, the earth spins at about 1,030 miles per hour at the equatorial regions, and that equates to about 19 feet per second eastward rotation and all of that stuff. I'm not necessarily going into all of that and the amount of drop per cubic feet or miles or whatever to determine the curvature of the earth and all of that kind of stuff. The pattern that the sun and the moon should take if it's a flat earth versus if it's a globe. You can do your research into all of that stuff, and based on the people who follow me, you probably already have. So I'm just talking about the theory itself. If you've watched my channel, you know that there are some things that I used to believe that I don't believe anymore. And in some videos, I talk about concepts that I came across and started believing when I first embarked on this journey. And now I really don't subscribe to them anymore after doing further research. Flat Earth is one of those things. I have to say that at first, uh, the flat Earth had the flat Earth concept had a lot of appeal for me, especially at that time when I was first waking up. I just left the church and all of that stuff. The flat Earth concept really had a lot of persuasive points, and uh, I think for me it was the numbers, you know, because I'm a very knowledge based individual. Uh, I make decisions based on knowledge, based on facts, based on evidence. And so when you can present numbers, mathematical equations that you can do yourself and come up with tangible, yeah, I guess we could say tangible when we're talking about math, but come up with tangible results. Uh, then for me, stuff like that is more convincing than not. So I gave a lot of credence to the flat earth, and I followed a lot of flat earthers on YouTube. I got a lot of good books on flat earth and started reading them. And I was sort of convinced that, let me clear this up. I was never convinced that the earth was flat. I was convinced that it was not a sphere. Let's get that straight. I never thought it was flat. I thought that it was not a sphere. So when it comes to whether the earth was flat or not, I was more agnostic, I guess we could say, uh, than I was a believer to the affirmative. So I wasn't fully convinced that it was flat, but it was enough there to make me doubt that it was a sphere. I tell you, one of the most convincing things for me that the earth is indeed a sphere was the fact that when you look up in the sky, and I have a telescope and I do this, so when you look up in the sky and look at the moon, look at the sun, on last night, I don't know if you guys stargaze or whatever, but last night Mars was right out, and if you haven't been paying attention, Mars is closer right now than it has been in the last 15 years, I believe. So it's a lot closer to the Earth right now than it has been. So it's really easy to see it in the night sky without a telescope. Uh, I mean, I didn't use a telescope last night. I just looked up in the sky and saw it just sitting right there. So it's a lot closer. Look at any other planets. Look at the moon. Look at the sun. What shape are they? The spheres. I mean, it's hard to see depth perception from where we are, but at least you see that it's circular, it's round, and we can assume that they're spheres. Uh, if the earth is flat, I think what you would have to explain for me is why it's the only thing that we see that's flat. We can turn telescopes, to other celestial bodies, and none of them appear to be flat. So why would I believe that the earth is the only thing that's flat? Meanwhile, it's orbited by a spherical moon, and it orbits a spherical sun, uh, and it's in a solar system with other spheres. Why would it be the only thing flat? That was and still is a very uh, problematic topic for me. That question for me kind of won me over. Okay, I would say I don't have necessarily definitive proof that the Earth is a sphere. All right. However, what I would say is that it's more probable than not that the Earth is a sphere than it is flat, just based on that alone. I did not say that because these other bodies are spheres, the Earth has to be a sphere. That's not what I said. Listen, I'm saying because these other bodies are spheres, it's more probable that the Earth is a sphere also. this issue of the Earth's rotation. And I think this was more, so I didn't believe the Earth was a sphere back then. I didn't believe it. I believe that's probably the best explanation based on the evidence that we have, that the Earth is a sphere. Uh, One thing that I was more against was that the Earth was rotating. I didn't see any evidence for that personally. I didn't see any evidence for the Earth rotating. It just seemed beyond me that uh, the Earth was spinning at 1,000 miles per hour, and we don't even get as much as a breeze. Like I'm sitting outside right now, and I'm surrounded by trees, and it's not even a breeze. It's perfectly still. So I was like, if the Earth's spinning 1,000 miles per hour, I mean, come on, that's a hurricane from hell. We have to be in a turbulent environment all the time, like all the time. It would be ceaseless. Now I don't believe that anymore. I think that it's good reason to believe that the Earth is, in fact, rotating. And one of the things that in my research that convinced me of that fact is when we launch different rovers and things to send out, like we sent Curiosity to Mars, and these different rovers that we sent out, telescopes and stuff that we put up in orbit, satellites, we have to launch from the Earth, and we do that based on the Earth's rotation. We have to take that into account when we're coming up with the equations to base our trajectory on. It plays a part. So uh, it was convincing. Secondly, if you get in the into the flat Earth thing, you'll hear this. Okay, it's 19 feet per second eastward rotation, 18 or 19 feet per second eastward rotation. So in theory, if I jump up off the ground and I'm in the air for 1 second precisely before I touch back down, in theory, if you're going on this flat Earth concept, I should land 19 feet to the west of the point where I jumped up initially, if the Earth's rotating. If it's spinning eastwardly, 19 feet per second, I jump up, the Earth is spinning, I should come down 19 feet further to the west. Uh, and that's not the case. Well, the reason it's not the case is because when you jump, you're jumping, but you have in your jump, you carry the momentum of the Earth's rotative force from the time you jumped. So you're not jumping off of a still body. If the body that you're jumping off of was not in motion, and once your feet left the ground, it started to rotate, then that would be true. But if you're on it at the time you jump up, you're going to continue in the direction of the rotative force. So you'll come down right where you jumped up at. Uh, you don't have to believe it. Do it on the back of a truck if you got the balls to do so. Uh, get in the back of a truck and have the truck start driving and jump up and see if you end up off the truck when you land. You won't. You'll still be in the back of the truck, even though the truck is moving. Why? Because the momentum of the truck's movement or acceleration is carried over with you when you jump. So that's why you don't land 19 feet further west the point where you jumped up off the ground at. So one thing I don't do is criticize necessarily people who believe in the flat Earth, because at least they're doing research. At least they're skeptical, and skepticism is a good thing. So I don't criticize anybody that adheres to the flat Earth concept. I don't call them stupid. or unscientific. I think they may be using science with a slant or biasly or incorrectly even to come up with some of their conclusions. Also, there's been people who have tried to prove that the Earth is flat based off of this, the curvature of the Earth. So if the Earth is round, then as you go out to sea, right? When we stand on the shore and we look, it looks perfectly flat because we're staring into the horizon, and the horizon's perfectly flat out there. So as a ship goes out to sea, what happens? Eventually, you don't see the ship anymore because the curvature of the earth, but the horizon's right there. Now, people tried to disprove this, and what they did is mount it like a sign, a piece of plywood with a design painted on it with lines, a certain amount of lines. All right. And they counted the amount of lines that was visible at the time it left the shore. And they sent it out at different increments, different distances. And somebody stands there with a set of binoculars to count the amount of lines that was visible. If the earth wasn't flat, then the same amount of lines would be visible the whole distance. I'm sorry, if the earth was flat, the same amount of lines, let's say it was 10 lines visible when it left the shore. All right, if the earth was flat, no matter how far out they went, as long as we had binoculars or something, we could look and count and see 10 lines. That's not what happened. As the boat went out, the lines started to disappear. And now you started to see less and less lines because of the curvature of the earth. So it's been experiments done where people tried to prove it, and this experiment was done by flat earthers. This wasn't done by people who believed in the globe. Uh, this was done by flat earthers who tried to prove that the earth was flat by doing this experiment. And it was people from both sides who showed up to watch the experiment, and it failed. It proved the opposite, that the earth is indeed curved. So, to each his own. I encourage you to do research. I encourage you to investigate. I encourage you to ask questions. But when you do, make sure you're not doing biased research. Make sure you do your research open-mindedly, and whatever hypothesis you come up with, you have to test it, and it should be uh, falsifiable. That's a big thing when you're doing science. Is your hypothesis falsifiable? If it's not, then it's not a valid hypothesis. If there's no way for it to be false, it's not valid. All right, that's science, and we'll talk more about that in the future. But I wanted to do this preliminary video talking about the flat Earth theory because it is important, and I know a lot of you guys are going to come across this theory or this concept doing this your studies and your research. So I wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions on the flat Earth theory. Whatever you're studying, hats off to you. Congratulations. I commend you because at least you're studying, you're applying skepticism, you're asking questions, and you're doing research. At the end of the day, that's all I can ask. This has been the Deck Talking Devil. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Share this video, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Until next time, keep studying, my friend.